Thanks very much, Emma, and thanks everybody for allowing me the opportunity. I'm just going to recount a little bit about how I got here, if you'll indulge me. So, September 2005, Jim McCarthy, who's an Irish Nuffield scholar from 1998, visited WA, and he left me a signed copy of his report. And at the time I was 22 years old. And inside it is a handwritten note to me saying that I should apply in my mid-30s. And a quote that I think is really very apt for Nuffield, which is that you will learn very little from staying home. So in 2019, in my mid-30s, I applied and was successful in becoming a 2020 Nuffield Scholar. That's a photo actually of Jim and his son Liam in Romania, where they run a business called Southern Harvest Romania. So when my 2020 Nuffield Scholarship got underway at the CSC, Professor Bill Malcolm from the University of Melbourne said two things that really resonated with me. And the first was that the best corporate operation is one that operates like a family farm, and the best family farms operate like corporations. He also said, for corporate farming operations to succeed, they need to recreate the incentives of the family farmer for the corporate manager. Now, that resonated with me because I'd always thought that investing in farming presented a really unique challenge. Corporations can easily buy farmland, but it doesn't come with a farmer. And they can very easily acquire land and equipment, but a skilled farm manager, particularly in the operations area, is a very rare find. During my travels, long-time family friend and Nuffield scholar, Jim McCarthy, he emphasised three things to me that were successful, or ingredients for a successful farm business, or any business: strategy, capital, and people. And Jim also recounted famous Irish agricultural identity, Dennis Brosnan, who was the man responsible for transforming the Kerry Co-op, a dairy cooperative, into a multinational food and ingredients business, employing over 20,000 people. And he said, to run a successful business, you need a dreamer, a businessman, and a son of a bitch to get things done. Now, for the family farm business, like ourselves, wearing all three hats is a real challenge. So I realised that corporate and growing family farms face similar issues: attracting and retaining high quality people, especially managers, and particularly at the operational level. Both stood to learn something from one another. Many family farms have scaled up, so they need more people, they need more management layers, and they need more sophisticated systems, very much like corporate farms. So my topic changed, and it led me to focus a lot more on the separation of business and operations management. And it became systems, processes, and people for high performance outcomes. And the question being, how can we help family farms move beyond the traditional owner-operator model and build on their strengths to achieve or continue to achieve economies of scale? And so with a head full of questions, I began a journey that started at the Farmers Club in London and ended in the Rocky Mountains in Alberta, travelling through England, Scotland, Ireland, Poland, Romania, Ukraine, and Canada. I met with both family farms and also with corporate farm businesses, and I also did some research here at home in Australia.
Where we start getting a little bit different with our presentation today. So, Andrew, what is required to allow farm owners to work on the business rather than in it?
Thanks, Emma. It's cliche, I realise, but delegation is absolutely key. So if you're going to empower others to manage operations, then it's all about delegation. And if you're going to change the balance of time that you spend between running your operation and working on the business, you need systems and you need processes, and they need to be established to allow that delegation to occur but also to give you confidence around what the outcomes will be. So in Canada, I visited a number of really large operations, Monette Farms, C2 Farms, and also Hebert Grain Ventures. And they're all making use of a system that was off the shelf called Entrepreneurial Operating Systems. And EOS is a framework that's built around setting a vision, availing yourself of the right people, analysing your data, and then after you've done this, it allows you to focus then on to issues, processes, and traction, or making this all happen.
What can small family farms learn from larger operations and vice versa?
So there's a lot that the family farm can learn from the larger operations in the areas of structure and scalability, but conversely, the larger operation can learn a lot from the family farm in terms of the importance of very strong relationships, community ties, and the hands-on approach to leadership. And we did hear a little bit about that earlier on today. So really, I think a blend of both could create a very powerful hybrid model.
Is it possible to empower others to perform as well, or even better than the owner?
Yeah, so this is a question that really is at the crux of what I went to look for. And it certainly is possible, but again, you need the right training and systems. And the other thing you need to do is to stop talking about it and move it beyond rhetoric and really commit to investing time and financial resources to achieving this, because it isn't going to happen unless you do. So I saw a good example of this at Delage Farms, which is another large family operation in Canada, where Janelle Delage was really exemplifying this approach by providing her management with clear frameworks, operational manuals, and also just ongoing support for ensuring that her management team were set up for success on the farm.
In regard to managers, are there any effective performance or profit-linked remuneration models that work?
Oh, we might just go back one step, sorry.
Okay.
Missed a page. So this guy here is Christian Ebert, and so this is in relation to the previous question. The other thing for setting a manager up for success is really around autonomy. So it's absolutely critical that people in managerial roles have autonomy, but you also need to have a balance between independence and accountability. And Christian Ebert really demonstrated this very well with his ditch analogy, which hopefully we'll play. Ooh, it didn't. Anyhow, the analogy is basically that you send the manager off and you send them down the road, and there's a ditch either side of the road, and you need to tell them where the ditches are and make sure that they know exactly where they are and what not to do to end up in them. And the last part of what he says is, if you're going to end up in them, I want to be the first person to know, because then I can do something about it. And if you end up in them, then there's your opportunity as somebody managing that manager to implement some changes, because obviously what you've put in place didn't work. So that's a real shame that didn't work. I was looking forward to his Canadian accent.
Can I go back to my question about remuneration models for managers, whether they're performance or profit linked? Absolutely,
sure. So I did see examples of that. It's actually very common, as you probably would imagine, and it's crucial for motivating a manager. Farm businesses are really increasingly using KPIs or key performance indicators that were linked to things that were beyond the financial measures. So metrics incorporating factors like deadlines and also compliance. So yeah, well beyond the financial reward. And speaking with managers, so looking at this from the other perspective, it was really clear that any incentives, they've got to be tangible, they've got to be measurable, and they've got to be fair. So one of the Australian managers I spoke to put this best when he said that he was very tired of working for a promise, and that was his reason for leaving the family farm and moving into a managerial role with a corporate. So beyond the financial reward, managers really need to feel valued, they need to feel respected and recognised by you and also by their peers.
Great. Right. Are there any examples of partnerships that you know of that pair passion and ambition with capital?
Yep, absolutely. So this is a space that I think there's a lot of opportunity in. In Canada, I met a guy called Josh Lade, or in fact, I actually knew him previously. He's an Australian who had formed an equity partnership with a local farming family, very, very similar to that of the Nuffield scholars Robin Schaefer and John Gladigo. Many of you will know them from the Bullaburra collaboration in Loxton, South Australia. And that model allows the landholders to lease their land to an operating entity, and it earns them a fixed rate of return, while they then share the profit and the risks of the operations business pro rata based on their equity. So really it's a mutually beneficial relationship that's bringing together a partner that's got passion and enthusiasm, and then for Josh's sake, he gains the benefits of scale and also the capacity to leverage his very limited capital. And that was really evident when I visited them in their growth trajectory over 10 years. Just incredible what they'd been able to achieve as a joint venture. So I guess summary, ultimately probably best put by Rob Syke, who was a farm consultant in Canada, who said that these solutions don't come off the shelf. They are built and customised over time. They evolve. There is no holy grail, but there are a series of systems that come together which are all hinged around people. And I wrote that down very quickly when he said that, because I realised it was the crux of what I'd been looking for, and it was fortunate that it was right towards the end of my travel. So I guess whether you're creating systems or empowering your managers or building partnerships, like we've heard many times today, the focus must always be on the people, the lifeblood of any successful farm.
Great. And speaking of people, do you have any interesting Nuffield stories to share?
Well, you know, I've got a few, but I might just share one. So I went to Ukraine, which is, I didn't tell Jody or anyone. I did tell Jacinta, and it was a fairly short conversation, which went something like, well, I'm not really listening to what you're saying because I know when you get off the phone you're going into Ukraine, no matter what I say, which is exactly what happened. So it's a bit like an international farming joke. I borrowed a car off an Irishman in Romania to drive to a German's farm, where I met up with some Dutch guy to walk across the checkpoint into Ukraine and get picked up by a car and driven 550 k's into the middle of Ukraine to the Dutchman's farm. And many of you will know K's, and that was probably one of the highlights of my time away, and I was so well received, as you would expect to be anyway, but particularly because of what was going on in that and continues to be going on in that place. They were just amazed that I'd come to see what they were doing, so that was a huge highlight.
Thank you, Andrew. Big round of applause for Andrew. Thank you.
I'd just like to make sure that I do what I need to do in terms of thanking everybody that supported me, my family and my wife Jacinta. As everybody else has said, these things don't just happen. People need to stay home and steer the ship and manage our family. To all the generous hosts, you guys all know this, but it's absolutely incredible that people will give you their time, talk to you in depth about their businesses, arrange things for you, house you. You guys know what occurs. To Nuffield Australia, yes, I'm another 2020 scholar, still trying to get rid of us. I'm glad I've stuck with it. I've been encouraged to many times over the last few years. Thank you very much, Jody, and thank you very much, Nicola. And also, last but not least, thank you very much to GRDC, because I wasn't going anywhere without your support, and I'll be forever grateful. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.